he went past me in the left lane. And I recognized the car and him. And the next thought I had was, I've been making this commute for several weeks. There's a highway patrolman that sits under the viaduct about 2 miles up the road. No CB, no cell phones in those days. There was no way I could warn him. And there was no way in the world I was going to catch him. So I just had to kind of wait and see how it played out. And sure enough, got to the viaduct. It was Dr. Jeff coming. But, I think he saw me when I went by. He was pulled over that day. But he owned it. He told the whole story the next day at the regional from the platform. But he did have a little trouble with a left foot, at least back in those days. And he had V8s and I only had 4. So, well, it was 45 years ago this week that I met Dr. Jeff Cobb for the very first time. I had just graduated from Grand Rapids School of Bible and Music, had earlier applied to the United Missionary Fellowship, and had been accepted to attend candidate school. Now, in my mind, going to the mission headquarters and meeting the general director, and I was extremely intimidated. And yet, the thing that I remember about that week, Dr. Jeff Cott taught all the sessions. All of 5 of us that were in that year's candidate school met in his office for every session. And it only took a little while, and you realize that Dr. Jeff Cott was just a humble man who loved missionaries and loved young people. And I really saw his style of leadership, how personal and relational it was. That Sunday we were invited to dinner at his home, and I met Mrs. Jeff Cott, Clint, Tom, Philip for the first time, and those were been great relationships through the years. Dr. Jeff Cott genuinely enjoyed time with missionaries, whether it was in Sacramento or on the field. One trip to Sacramento I made happened to come in the spring during strawberry season. And Denny's had this great strawberry shortcake. And for one reason or another, we always had to have a meeting at Denny's, after the office closed. And it just so happened that was there and on special. But he really enjoyed those times with missionaries. And his influence on my life was vital. I was single when I joined the mission just before my 21st birthday. And those early years in Tremont were very difficult for me. But every time he visited the field, the thing that he always made a point of was to commend me for sticking with it. To be perfectly honest, I felt like I was failing in a very great way. But Dr. Jeff Cott prized, as Andrea said earlier, faithfulness. And so I always left, or whenever he left, we parted, I always felt encouraged because he valued that in the lives of his missionaries. Came time when I decided maybe I better go somewhere other than Utah, get married and come back here and be a little more productive. And I really dreaded having to tell Dr. Jeff Cott that I had made that decision. And yet the thing that I remember was not, how could you, you've only been here so many years, all this. He said, I think if I were in your situation, that's what I would do. And he encouraged me. And he also made it clear, you get married, you come back. We want you back. Well, I did get married. And within less than a year, my wife and I were looking for a new place of ministry. We went to an IFCA convention and attended the church extension meetings beforehand. And Dr. Jeffcott was one of the main speakers. And what I remember is not what he spoke about that week, but a panel that they had with 3 mission heads. Dr. Jeffcott, 2 other men involved in church planting, and the subject of what kind of missionaries do you want came up. And the first 2 guys said, you know, we are really tired of young people that don't have any experience, and they come and join our mission, and it turns out they've got all kinds of problems, and just, you know, we let them get some experience somewhere else. In other words, don't cause me any grief. And then come and serve with our mission. Dr. Jeffcott was the last one to speak. And he said, we'll take all the young people we can get. We'll give them an internship. We'll work with them. And they'll make good missionaries. That's been our experience. That was a defining moment for me. Because I said, you know, that's what I've missed. I want to go back to UMF. I want to go back to a mission that has a general director that loves young people and loves missionaries and wants to see them be able to succeed serving the Lord. It wasn't 6 weeks later we were in Sacramento, Lori and I, rejoining United Missionary Fellowship. You know, in those days we didn't have area directors. Most of our contact with the leadership of the mission was with Dr. Jeffcott. He had as a goal, while he was mission director, to visit every field every year. And I don't think he ever missed with Utah and Idaho. I did notice, though, that sometimes he made it more than one time a year. And we always had the sense that, you know, we were special in his heart. And I think we were. But I think Dr. Jeffcott's a lot like a lot of grandparents. Somebody asked you, who's your favorite grandchild? I always say, all of them, you know. And I think he was that way with the mission fields and the missionaries. He loved all of it. Proximity made it a little easier to get to Utah. It was only a day's drive from Nevada, especially if you had a V8 and heavy foot. That helped. But we really appreciated his visits to the field. It's been mentioned already, in 1988, there was a merger under Dr. Jeffcott's leadership. United Missionary Fellowship and WEF Ministries combined to become Biblical Ministries Worldwide. And during those early years, we didn't have an area director for Utah and Idaho. So Dr. Jeffcott was the general director and the area director. And that was real comforting to us. It was almost like, well, you know, yeah, a lot of stuff's changed, but we've still got that connection that meant so much to us. And when Dr. Jeffcott's time for retirement came, we were all excited that he was going to move to Utah. And he and his wife Dorothy did everything they were able to do in those next years, as long as they were physically able, filling pulpits, sometimes in places where there were less than 10 people, but always willing to serve, always willing to help. When we had the opportunity to acquire Key Radio, my analysis was, this is too big. I don't think we can handle this. Dr. Jeffcott called me up on the phone and said, we can't miss this opportunity. We need to do this. And you need to do it. And just that, again, that supportive confidence and encouragement meant so much. You know, Dr. Jeffcott's tender heart for his missionaries was displayed on more than one occasion through the years on this field. And not all of those occasions were easy for him. 1974, Margaret Mannion passed away in a car accident, leaving Dick and 5 children behind. Dr. Jeffcott and other board members came from Sacramento to be a part of the funeral. Later, John and Nora Romanowski had a tragic car accident in California in 1986, and their two oldest daughters were killed, Carolyn and Kristen. And Dr. Jeff Cott once again came to the field to participate in the funeral. And I can remember talking to him just before the funeral began, and he was telling me just how difficult this was for him. That he just wasn't sure that he'd have the right words. You know, as a young pastor, I felt, well, I feel that way. I'm not sure that all these years later I feel a whole lot different on even a day like today. But that was his tender heart. And what I do remember is when he got up to speak, he had exactly the words that we all needed as we were there to grieve. I was so touched, though, by his caring, his honesty, and his vulnerability. He was a humble man. He did not put on airs, and he did not feel that his position as a general director of a mission was anything that would keep him from fellowshipping and enjoying the company of anyone. You know, Dr. Jeff Cott shared some wonderful times with the mission family in Utah as well. Dedications of new church buildings, graduation of churches were some of those. But I have some personal memories that are really special to me. He stayed in our home. And that's another thing. He wasn't afraid to stay with missionaries. He even stayed with me when I was single. But he was staying in our home. We had a 3-month-old daughter, Sarah. And I had gotten a call that afternoon from Lori. Dr. Jeff Cott and I had been in Nephi getting ready to church for dedication the next day. And she said, this kid needs something more. Could you pick up some cereal on your way home? Let's try to introduce some solid food. And Dr. Jeff Cott was there, watched as we cooked up the cereal. You all know how it is with a 3-month-old trying to get him to take that first little bit of cereal. And he watched that scene, and then he said something to me that just meant so much. He said, this is what I always hoped for you. That you would have a wife. You would have children. He had such a genuine care for his missionaries. The next morning, he dedicated Sarah to the Lord for us at Payson Bible Church. That afternoon, we dedicated a church building in Nephi. But those are the kind of things that he joined in with and celebrated with us as missionaries. You know, there's many other special moments I could share today. My last visit with Dr. J was last October. We had a great time of fellowship and sharing memories. He was still keeping up with missionaries, still reading those missionary prayer letters, and spending time in prayer for them. When it was time to go, I asked Dr. Jeff Cott to pray for me. And then I, in turn, prayed for him. It was a precious moment, the last time we would see each other this side of heaven. But when I think of Dr. Jeff Cott as a man and as a leader, the term servant leadership comes to mind. A lot of people talk about servant leadership. That's almost a buzzword today, isn't it? Dr. Jeff Cott didn't just talk about it. In fact, I don't know that he ever really did talk a lot about it. He just lived it. He showed us what servant leadership was. He was kind and gracious in his leadership of his missionaries, and he taught us how to serve and how to lead, how to treat other people, how to shepherd our flocks. He was an example of what it meant to be a servant and a leader. For those of us who have the privilege of knowing him and serving with him, that example has shaped our lives in ministry and will continue to do so. And I can already see in the successive generations, not just of Jeff Kotz, but of those that have been influenced by Dr. Jeff Kott, how that legacy will go on. May we be found at the finish line to have been as faithful as he was. May God help us to finish well.
I remember on a Palm Sunday when I was 9 years old, my mother was in the hospital. And that particular Sunday, our Sunday school teacher, who was the pastor's wife, just took the whole class time to explain the gospel to us boys. We were the junior boys class. And she asked how many of us would like to accept Christ as our Savior, and I said I did. And so I accepted Christ when I was 9 years old in the Sunday school class. And as soon as church was over, I jumped on the bus and went up to the hospital, which was maybe a half-hour ride north of there, and went into the hospital room where my mother was, and I said, "Mom, I got saved today." And that was the beginning of my Christian life. From an early age, I felt that the Lord was wanting me in full-time service. And so if anybody asked me, if I was a 10-year-old kid and anybody asked me, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" without even thinking about it, my answer was, "I'm going to be a preacher." I started in my junior year, I started dating a very beautiful young lady. We approached our whole dating relationship from the very beginning is on the basis of is this the Lord's will for us? Are you the girl that the Lord wants me to marry? And she would say, "Are you the man that the Lord wants me to marry?" And so we said, let's begin to pray separately to see if this is the Lord's will. And then when we would date, sitting up in the dating parlor, a lot of our dates were just talking about spiritual things, and we'd always end it with a time of praying together.
How great His faithfulness. has rescued me from certain death, and now this life I live in Him. Oh, let His glory shine while I grows dim. How vast His grace, how grand His majesty, His love, His reign, His bright His glory, His love, how strong His might, how clear His triumph, and all of these He gives to me. So I will praise Him with every breath, for He has rescued me from certain death, and now this life I live in Him. Oh, let His glory shine. Oh, let His glory shine. Oh, let His glory shine while mine grows
Katie Dodson she did a little bit of work, put that together, and then all the pictures that were forwarded onto her that made that possible. But that's going to be a precious presentation. I was supposed to sing a duet with Tommy. Then I looked at the program and I thought, man, I don't think I can do that. So he's going to sing a duet by himself.